It's no surprise that a high-profile celebrity like Sean Diddy Combs would try to appeal his conviction. Plenty have done it before, but you know what is surprising? The argument his lawyers put before a three-judge panel as to why he should be released from his 50-month sentence and freed immediately. In a filing, they say his infamous freak-off tape showing sexual encounters involving his girlfriends and male sex workers, they argue, were voyeurism and amateur pornography, conduct that's protected by the First Amendment. Here's the twist, though. That wasn't even the main issue in court today. It all came down to this: whether the judge appropriately punished Sean Combs by potentially using evidence and conduct about the crimes he was acquitted of in determining his sentence for the crimes he was convicted of. Remember, Combs was convicted of 2 Mann Act violations, with the jury finding he transported sex workers and his girlfriends across state lines for drug-fueled parties that he dubbed as freak-offs. But he was acquitted of the more serious charges of racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking. And it's those charges, the ones the jury said not guilty on, that his attorneys say the judge relied on to hand down a longer sentence. A sentence, they say, goes way past how others have been sentenced in the past. But prosecutors pushed back, arguing the judge followed the law and that much of what drove the sentence didn't rely on acquitted conduct at all. Now, the appeals judges, they pressed both sides. Ultimately, the panel didn't rule today. Could be weeks before we get an answer, which could be essentially throwing the convictions out or even directing Combs to be resentenced, or maybe everything stays the way that it is. Now, we're going to dive into the legal side of things in just a moment, but first, question is, were these freak-offs really just amateur pornography? My next guest was there. Shereé the Punisher Hayes, an exotic dancer, former sex worker who testified in Sean Combs' trial that he was hired by Combs and Cassie Ventura multiple times. He is also the author of the book, In Search of Freezer Meat. Shereé Hayes joins me now. No one, I used to do trademark work. I don't think anybody's going to come up with that title.
Yeah, I tried to get my own lane.
So I'm happy to have you on. As I'm listening to this argument, I was thinking, who would know better whether or not this was just, amateur pornography, whether or not it was harmless? You might. You're listening to that argument. It wasn't presented in court today. It was in the filings. Your thoughts on that? Was it amateur pornography?
Well, when I look back to it, it was a very choreographed, kind of streamlined scenario. And there was a lot of focus on the lighting, body positions, and I think I was not aware that I was filmed. I found that after the fact, but I can see where it was definitely something that was set up to be kind of captured in a certain way. So it might be some credence to that.
When you hear the way it's described today, when you hear the way it was described at trial, do you feel like a victim? Do you feel like this was a crime?
So I don't. In terms of my interactions, with all the details coming out, it almost sounds embarrassing to say, but it was something as a guy and interacting with this beautiful woman for thousands of dollars. It was something I was like almost proud of in terms of like bragging rights with the buddies. It was really shocking to me when all of the allegations came out and it became such a bigger thing. But I cannot look back and say any of my interactions, because nothing felt uncomfortable in regards to her energy, the energy that I received in interacting, that made me feel like anything that, if there was no allegations, it would be something I wouldn't think twice of.
Look, I'm going to get into the law on this in a minute with Mark Garagos, but essentially, generally speaking, the way the argument broke down today is how serious is it what he was convicted of, right? I mean, the defense would say, yeah, these are crimes, but you look at other people who are convicted of it, they didn't get this kind of prison time. It's not racketeering. It's not sex trafficking. It's not an egregious kind of crime. Whereas the prosecution was saying, no, this was really bad. This happened multiple times. There were elements of violence. There were elements of drugs. You will listen to the arguments today, not even getting into the law, but just listening to it. How serious do you think it is what he ended up being convicted of? How serious do you think it is, these freak-offs, these hotel nights?
Honestly, man, I don't think it's serious at all.
Really?
I think everything was overblown. My interactions, as I testified to, I didn't see any signs of distress. And then in the interim, since the trial, I've actually spoke to other guys that were involved in the actions and parts of it, and we all, nothing that I can point blank see as it being anything more than a couple having fun in a kind of kink type of way, but not anything that I could even begin to say that I saw a crime or anything that is warrants these type of charges.
So let me ask you this. If this panel says, you know what, he shouldn't have been sentenced this, I think he should be released. Or you know what, send it back down. He gets resentenced, let's say to time served. Let's say his convictions get thrown out. Let's say Sean Diddy Combs becomes a free man before April 2028. How would you feel?
I would feel it's warranted. I mean, I was actually at the sentence hearing, and I was shocked that he was not released with time served, and even more blown away when I heard 50 months. I just, there were precedent cases thrown out there with people who were actually pimps that made millions of dollars, and in their convictions they got 25 months, 27 months. So I was really like completely confused when I saw 50 months associated with his sentence.
You know Sean Combs is facing litigation. You heard people testifying against him at trial. To those who say, Mr. Hayes, I disagree with you. I feel like a victim. I feel what he did was a crime. I feel like I was victimized by what he did. What would be your answer to them who say, no, I think 50 months is appropriate?
Well, what my answer to them is, I'm going to look at it strictly on the precedents and strictly on what he's convicted of. And when you talk about the Mann Act, which is transportation of prostitution, and there's no precedent where if anybody got 50 months or even half of that is the norm in extreme cases. I'm sorry, as somebody who, any of us can be in a scenario where something happens in our life and we have a court deciding our future. And precedents are there for a reason, and for a guy to get an excessive amount of time for a crime that people get much lesser penalties is just unfair. And I'm speaking on the fairness of it. I'm not trying to disparage anybody's experience, but precedents are there for a reason.
Well, listen, you have a firsthand account of this. I wanted to have you on. This is a big development. I'm going to go into the legal side in a minute. But Shereé Hayes, thanks for coming on, making your Jesse Weber Live debut.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Good luck on the book.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.